Christy Curran. I'm going to talk to you about launching your writing workshop at the beginning of the school year. Recently, I spent a couple of weeks this summer facilitating a writing retreat or summer institute, whatever you want to call it. And it's something I do every summer, and it's probably the thing I love to do the most in my job as a literacy consultant. And there's a lot of laughing, a lot of crying, a lot of loving. It's a really special week with teachers, and in that week, so much of what's talked about is getting your workshop up and going, this thing called Writing Workshop that feels, kind of daunting at times, especially when, if you're like me, you don't really, you certainly, I never really saw myself as a writer, definitely never going through school, and so in knowing that, thinking to yourself like, oh my goodness, I'm going to be teaching, fourth graders how to write well when I don't feel like I write well. That's really scary. And so this week, long institute that I do every summer, weeks, whatever, different districts around the country, it really helps sort of ease that feeling of I can't do this, or do I have the right to do this, and really empowers teachers to know, actually, in fact, you are a writer. And just like we give kids special paper to write with and a writer's notebook to write with, and we say this is all you need to be a writer, it's the same thing with teachers. And so in finishing that and feeling, like I do every year when I finish, how exciting it is to start the new year and get going with kids, and how important it is to teach Writing Workshop. It's really life-changing. And so I thought I would spend the next 7 days sharing some tips from that institute, and just life tips, and to kind of like help you feel a little bit more confident, because I feel like that's the number one thing. You've got to feel confident in doing this. My number one mentor, Mary Osborne, has taught me so many things. I'll be talking about her a lot in this video, but that would be the number one thing, is that we need to feel confident, and we need to help support our kids to feel confident, and then along with their craft. But the confidence is just a little bit more important. And the more confidence you have, you'll take risks with your craft, for sure. And then the more craft you gain, the more craft you have, the more confidence you gain. So they go hand in hand, but we can't really be open to that craft until we start like seeing that we're worthy of it, that we really are writers, because we have that writer's notebook. So today, the very first thing that I want to share with you is the importance of having mentors. And whether it is your curriculum person, like Mary Osborne, or your colleague, or, which I think really were my earliest mentors, thanks to my colleagues, professional books. So the very first mentor that I had was Don Graves. And he wrote this book, A Fresh Look of Writing, and it was my first book, writing book that I really devoured and spoke to me. And I'll never forget two amazing colleagues of mine, Cynthia Kidd and Joyce Pastel, that I worked with in when I taught fourth grade, and third, fourth, fifth grade teachers that supported me. They were like, we are driving to Orlando, Florida to see Don Graves, and then you're going to read this book. And actually, Cynthia Kidd gave this to me when I interned with her and had her kids sign it in the inside. And then, of course, I had Don Graves sign it. To Christy, the best is yet to come. Enjoy. Imagine that, right? You're a brand new teacher. The best is yet to come. Like, anyway, and and I started flipping through this book recently to think about, like, what did I learn from him? And I mean, what did I not learn from him? Every single page is a part of who I am, and as a writing teacher. And so right away from the very beginning, he starts talking about, like, thinking about your own personal writing identity, which is really important, to just step back and kind of think, like, what was a time when writing was beautiful for you? He talks about here, write down names of teachers who have affected your view of yourself as a writer, and consider some of these things. You could do some of these activities. List the name of any teacher who recognized that you had something to say and helped you to say it. Or list the name of any person who is a good reader of your writing. Or list any recollections of any teacher who thought you had little of significance to write about. What was it like to write in that situation? List any recollections you have of your writing being posted on a bulletin board, including a collection, or published in a school magazine or newspaper. List any recollections of your writing being turned down for publication or posting. And so it's so interesting that he talks about your writing identity. That's something that I've talked about with kids and done with teachers for as long as I can remember, and I'm sure this is the place that I started getting that idea from, was Don Graves. And from that, and the work of Calkins, which has been the most probably influential writing teacher in my life, I created like a little checklist, if you will, of something that kids could fill out at the beginning of the school year that could be invaluable for you to really figure out, like, where are they coming from? How confident are they as writers? How do they see themselves? What is their writing identity? But I think it's really important to think about what your writing identity is too, and Don Graves helps us to think in that way. So take a moment to think about that as well, like, when has been a moment of beauty for you, and when has been a moment of darkness and not so great? And what was that like, and how did you feel, and how did that teacher impact you? And anyway, so many things in here I marked. The influence of any teacher that you've had in the past. But also, one thing he talks a lot about is that I really loved, and I wanted to mention to you, is the idea of, in that beginning launching unit, how critical it is to figure out what makes your kids, your writers, tick. He talks about, learn about the child beyond the walls of the school. I love that, he says, have questions that you could ask kids, like you're just walking to the cafeteria with them, but that you're going to have at least 1 to 5 to maybe 10 kids in your class that don't see themselves as writers. And in that first unit, in that launching unit, that really is the number one goal, is to get every single child to see themselves as a writer. That will pay off for you in such big ways as you move forward in the school year. But that's ongoing. I mean, for some kids, it may take longer than the first month of school and the first unit to help sort of penetrate that for kids and really figuring out, like, what's getting in their way. But some questions to just kind of, think a little bit about how to get to know your kids. Where do you play around here? How far can you go when you play? Tell me about the store over there. How long have you lived here? Are there kids here with whom you can play? So who are your friends? What do you do after school? What do you do on the weekends? Who's your family? Who's your family that you live with? Who's the family that you see sometimes on the weekends? What are your hobbies? What do you care about? Just finding out what makes that child tick. Anyway, one of the other things that I have to show you that, again, is like something that so many of my school districts really place an emphasis. So many school districts that I consult with, that they really pay a big emphasis on this, and I love this, that it's in his book, Teachers Writing with Their Kids. And this is like a picture of it right here in the beginning chapter. And so right away, one of the big things, and we'll talk about the importance of independence and volume and stamina on another day. I think that might be day 3. But that's one way to help support independence, for sure, because when you're writing with your kids and you're transitioning them from the gathering area to their where they're going to write, you can't see anyone who's not writing. So you can't sit here and get frustrated and why aren't they writing? You don't run over to fix whatever it is. So you're saying, I believe in you. I trust you. You have a heart. You have a brain. You have a pen. You have a notebook. You're good. You have everything you possibly need to be successful today in writing workshop. And because I'm going to write with you, I won't be able to confer with you right now. So you can take your time to get started. Many times writers need to think a little bit about what they're going to write about. Sometimes they need to look around at what other people are doing. Sometimes they need to look around at charts up in the room. And then the other thing this does, not only does it help you to not think about who's not doing what, but it also says to your kids, like, I am a writer too. I'm going to do this really beautiful stuff that you're doing and this really hard stuff that you're doing. I'm in it with you. Probably right up there with Don Graves, like one of my very first early mentors, is this gentleman, Roy Peter Clark. He wrote this book called Writing Tools, 50 Essential Strategies for Every Writer. He's written, 20 books, somewhere around there, probably more. But this is one of my favorite books because you can go to any single page and get like a quick and easy writing tip. So if you're, somebody that is like, you're like, I just need one little like move that I can use in my writing, this is kind of cool, be passive - aggressive, or activate your verbs, or watch those adverbs, any of those things that can help your writing, strengthen your writing, he's great for. But the reason I bring Roy up is because I met Roy 25 years ago when I first started teaching in Pinellas County, Florida. And Roy he's retired now. He retired about 2 years ago, but still writing, which is, of course, great. He was a senior scholar at the Poynter Institute, which is a school for journalists in St. Petersburg, Florida, where I'm from, my hometown. And he decided, because when his daughters were in 5th grade, he went to see what was happening in their schools, and they weren't writing. And he decided, oh, this is not so good. I need to like help this school district figure out how to get this writing stuff up and going. So he decided to start something called Writers Camp. And I was fortunate enough, my very first year teaching, which is probably why or when I first saw myself as a writer, to be able to participate, as one of the teachers at Writers Camp. And then about 3 years later, I started to facilitate the Writers Camp. So Roy has been like so influential in my life because he was so part of that camp and such an early mentor to me. And one of the things that he taught me, or always talked about, and I'll talk about that more tomorrow, is when you, which has to go with writing with your kids. If your son or daughter, you want them to have swimming lessons, you probably are hoping that the swimming coach is in the pool with your kids, right? And that's like the same thing in the teaching of writing. He says, it's so important to make sure that you're feeling what your kids are feeling, and you're doing this thing called writing as well. You're teaching it, so you want to do it a little bit. And granted, we don't always have time. We teach other subjects, to do this thing called writing. But how great, like what Graves talks about, how great to write with your kids for the first few minutes of writing workshop. I mean, 2-3 minutes, you can get a full page of words down in that amount of time, no time at all. And that message that it gives your kids is such a big one. I cannot go any further without bringing up this book, which I know this is the titles are probably backwards, but The Art of Teaching Writing by Lucy Calkins. I don't know. Like, sometimes I think. One of the things I learned really early on, and why I even bring up these books to you, is that this thing called the teaching of writing was so hard. And the thing that I know saved me was these people and their words. And Lucy, she writes a lot. It's a thick book for sure. But her words are so uplifting, so inspiring, so I got your back. You can do this. I believe in you, and it's amazing to me how this book, published, I don't know, 1980. No, I don't know. Let me find out. Let me find out exactly when it was published. 1986. I was going to say 1984, so 1986, is still so relevant today, and still so inspiring. And so anytime I feel like, I need just a little bit more support, I open this and it helps me. So she talks about this idea of teachers being writers, which we're going to talk about tomorrow, so I should bring this in tomorrow. She says, I have seen teachers who do not regard themselves as writers and yet teach writing in wondrous ways. If we ourselves are immersed in an ongoing way in our own writing, we have a fabulous resource to draw from when we teach. But it is not necessary to expect that all of us teachers will regularly draft, revise, and publish our own essays and poems. What is necessary, however, is that we have memories of a time when we loved writing, and that we draw on those memories when we teach writing. If we have even once in our lives experienced the power of writing, our teaching will be forever changed. Really powerful, And her writing is like that throughout this book. It just inspires you, and And I read her words, and all of a sudden I'm saying them to kids, And I feel like I'm sitting up taller. I feel a little bit more confident. And the thing about Lucy, that's true really about every writer that I'll share today, she is so about the what do real writers do. And I think one of the reasons, and she's, she just, you feel it. It's throughout. It's the tone in all of it. But one of the things that I think is the thread for all three of these, I know for sure, these writers, is the influence of Don Murray. And he's not somebody that I ever met, I did meet him. Actually, he did come to my school, one time, very long time ago. But he, I feel like taught Graves and Calkins and Roy Peter Clark so much, and they look at him and talk about him and refer to him constantly in all of their books. And so I feel like that's a huge thread in why there's so many commonalities with these incredibly influential writing teachers and mentors for us. So so anyway, Art of Teaching Writing, still one of the greatest books ever. And you know, we know Calkins has, sorry about that, we know Calkins has written Units of Study, and those are the books that many of us take on in our curriculum. But if you're feeling like, I don't know if I can do this, I don't really know if I believe it, I don't really see myself doing this yet, read her words. She will help you so much. So probably the next most influential writing teacher, mentor to me, is Ralph Fletcher. And again, I think this was, I don't know, Joyce or Cynthia, I can't remember. A kindred spirit, long live the word. He wrote this. Oh, I love him so much. Anyway, What a Writer Needs. I got my very first year teaching. It's skinny. And that was nice. That was a nice change, since Fresh Look at Writing and Art of Teaching Writing are kind of thick. So if you're like, oh, that feels a little intimidating to me, grab this book. Ralph is so great with storytelling. He has some incredible analogies in here that will forever, will ever be etched in my heart when I think about conferring, when I think about celebrating approximations, like seeing the strengths in kids. Some of his stories that illustrate these things, they really are powerful, and so and this is where Last Kiss came from. I don't know if you all are familiar with that, but that is one of my most favorite pieces of anything that he's ever written, and that was first introduced in What a Writer Needs, and so anyway, again, I could turn to any single page. I mean, one of the things that I think is gorgeous about this book is his stories make so much sense and really help you understand the why for doing things. But there's also so much practical stuff in here that really helps you, like, I don't think a lot of people talk about voice. Ralph talks about voice. And he, I remember when I first was like trying to figure this thing out called voice, and how do I teach voice? Like, that feels so abstract, because it is. And Ralph was right from here. Voice is one of the chapters. From here was what helped me sort of have something a little bit more concrete and something I understood a little bit better, so that I could then teach it to kids. So anyway, so very practical stuff in this book, but along with that, very inspiring and just beautiful storytelling that he uses to, really illustrate, the points that he's trying to make. Carl Anderson, this book, How's It Going? It's great book. Carl talks about Ralph being his mentor in writing this book. He talks about it at the very beginning. And so right away when he mentioned that, I was like, okay, I'm hooked. But he talks about conferring in a way that if you read Art of Teaching Writing, or if you read A Fresh Look at Writing by Don Graves, Carl just takes it and really unpacks it in a single book. But it is so what Graves and Calkins and Fletcher talk about, and Roy Peter Clark. Like, they all say the same thing, which feels so affirming when you read this. But again, skinny book, and conferring is like one of the hardest things to do. So this is a great mentor to have by your side. This woman, I don't know. I'm like, sometimes I'm like, when I think about Ralph Fletcher, I have a big smile on my face always, because he just has a book for everything, and he just has the right words for everything. But poetry, oh my gosh. My first year teaching, my colleague at the time was like, Christy, you have to teach poetry. And I'm like, yeah, that won't happen. That's not going to happen in this lifetime. I'm not teaching E.E. Cummings. No, I can't do it. She handed me, thank you, Leslie Strahl, she handed me this book, For the Good of the Earth. for the good of the earth and the sun. And I just have to say to you, it still has the barcode of my school in it. Shh, don't tell anybody. Nobody ever checked the book out. So I always had it. And then I started marking it up. And then the librarian was just like, just keep it, Christy. It's your book. You've got to have it. But anyway, Leslie said, read this. And Georgia is the warmest, most loving, I don't know. She oozes love, and I feel like from her book, it just like all spills out from her books. This book, Awakening the Heart, came after For the Good of the Earth and Sun. The title always gets me. Great title, but I just am like, I'm going to mess it up. And this book sort of like made me say, okay, I can do it. I'm teaching poetry. You've got my back, girl. I'm going to do this thing. You've made me believe it. This book, she really gives you concrete, practical ways to think about a unit. And I recommend this book all the time, especially for 3rd, 4th, 5th grade teachers that want to teach poetry. It really has everything you could possibly want in it. And one big thing it has that's very helpful, which is so important when you're teaching poetry, is it has lots and lots of poems, tons of poems. So that's a big deal. But Georgia, she's like a best friend, that's the best way I could describe her. She is like a best friend. I don't know where it is right now. Maybe I can find it at some point. But I have, I feel like it's on my desk somewhere, a picture of her wearing, I may have it. Let's see if I can find it. I think I have it. Oh, do I? No, maybe not. Oh, I can't get to it. Okay. Oh, well. I thought I had a picture. I do have a picture of her wearing my denim jacket, I don't know, 20 years ago when she came to my school district. And I seriously was like, I can't ever watch this. This is amazing. Georgia Hurd has my jacket. Yeah. So anyway, love her. And I will tell you why I even act like that in just a minute when I end with my final mentor. I do want to share Wondrous Words, Katie Woodray's book. One of the things that she really helps you do in this, and her main thing that she talks about, first of all, she gives you so many tools, and they're so practical and so helpful in the teaching of writing. But what she does is she's like, if you don't know what the name is, just make it up. You can make it up and teach it to your kids, And it just was like kind of like, okay, right, I'll just make up a name for this thing that I'm teaching you, because I don't know what it is, but it sounds really good. It makes your writing better. Let's do it. So anyway, it's a really fabulous book. I also, a few other books that I want to share with you. Catherine Bomer, this book by Catherine Bomer, The Journey is Everything, Teaching Essays That Students Want to Write for People Who Want to Read Them. Oh my goodness. And also talk about like being your best friend. Now, Catherine and I we're friends, but she's just like, you want to be her best friend. And the way she writes like this, you just, she got me really, really excited about essay. I taught in Florida 25 years ago. I knew how to teach my kids how to write an essay, but it was really formulaic. Lucy Calkins has that boxes and bullets unit. It's very formulaic, and it's so powerful. It's really powerful to know the formula. However, Catherine, she teaches, 3rd, 4th, 5th graders to think about their audience and to think about having an effect on their audience in a way like nobody's business. Like essays is all that, right? It is all about opinion and, thinking about the opinion I may have and considering other perspectives, and also figuring it out. Like, what is the opinion that I have? And so this whole idea of journey, the title, Journey is Everything. Like, I can't even say like how special that is, because I feel like so much of essay is about taking the journey out of essay. Like, here's your claim, now go for it. Where in her unit, she is really helping you think about how essay is really changing you, and the person that is like fortunate enough to get to read that essay, it's really changing their life as well. And so it's all about the journey, you know. And then she's Catherine Vollmer. She's just a delight. She's her personality comes out on the page, and she just love her. One of my school districts, I don't know, 5-6 years ago, was like, Christy, you have to do work with pre-K kids. And I'm like, oh my gosh, I love kindergarten at the beginning of the school year, and have been there on the 4th day of school in kindergarten, and I'm laughing lots. But pre-K, really? I don't know. If you are considering doing writing work with 3 and 4-year-olds, with 4-year-olds especially, Already Ready, Nurturing Writers in Preschool and Kindergarten, by Matt Glover and Katie Woodray. Amazing book. Amazing book. It's not Writer's Workshop. It is, and it's not supposed to be. And one of the things that they said, even at the very beginning, that both of them say is like, this looks like a big, thick book. It's not that thick, by the way, but, it looks like it could be Writer's Workshop kind of thickness. But it is only a portion of your day. It's a small portion of your day. So if you teach pre-K for half a day, or you teach pre-K for a full day, it's the approach of teaching writing in this way is so gorgeous, and will completely get kids ready for kindergarten. And in a school district that I've worked with for the last 4 years, Worcester School District in Ocean City, Maryland. Lucy Doherty and I created a whole year-long curriculum, really meeting kids developmentally where they are as 4-year-olds, and then getting them really ready for kindergarten, So by the end of that school year, in this, sort of nudge that Matt talks about, led them up to the end of the year, where, oh my goodness, look at this. Maybe we'll do some little writing workshop the last 3 weeks of school, So this book has been such a godsend, and so exciting to see what little 4-year-olds can do, because they can do a lot. We all know that. And then I'm going to close with going to close with 2 things. One thing I want to close with, actually, I think I'll save for tomorrow, because I'm already look like I'm going past my time. I'm going to share with you some books that have helped me, mentor me in thinking about working with teachers, and working on my own writing, to write a little bit myself. So tomorrow we're going to talk about the importance of that. But I want to end with this. So all of these authors have, there's no doubt in my mind. Oh, there is one more person I want to tell you about real quick. Brene Brown's my new favorite. Look at this. Oh my goodness. People have been yelling at me like, Christy, how do you read? I don't get it. If you don't have Dare to Lead, get it. Classroom teacher, literacy coach, principal, AP, anybody. Amazing book. Okay, sorry. Let me get back. So out of all these mentors, they've definitely helped me to empower me and inspire, help me to fall in love with the teaching of writing. This was not something that I was like, oh, I can't wait to teach writing. I was not me when I started teaching. But I will tell you, it quickly became me once I read these books. Graves, Calkins, Ralph Fletcher, Katie Woodray, Georgia Hurd, Roy Peter Clark. Amazing, amazing mentors. But the most powerful mentor to me is a woman. She's retired. She retired 2 years ago, a year ago, actually. It's starting her second year not being in the district, and she actually just moved and left Pinellas County. So I'm like, she's rocking my whole world. But I am so and forever will be grateful to one of my best friends and biggest cheerleaders and mentors for me, Mary Osborne. Mary was the curriculum, she was a coach. She never actually wanted the title of being Queen of Literacy or Queen of Writing, but she was the Queen of Teaching Writing. She was actually the Queen of Teaching Teachers. She was the one that taught me that you have to build up kids and teachers' confidence first and foremost, and then give them the craft once they're open and feel a little bit better. She was the one that taught me about really empathy and understanding in working with teachers. She was the one that came in my classroom and was like, Christy, just because it's test prepped, why do you have your kids back at your desk? Get them back in the gathering area, But in a way that it was like, of course, should say that to me. I don't know. Mary made everything beautiful, and she gave me all the tools that I could possibly need to be successful in my classroom, teaching for 9 years, and then now consulting for the last 13 years. I think this is going on my 14th year. She helped me so much to know that the most important thing is teachers are doing their very best every single day, and what we need to do as consultants and people that are supporting teachers is to recognize that well, first and foremost for me is to fall in love with every teacher I work with, and also know that you believe in every single teacher that you work with. Believe in them in every possible way. That they're hard workers, that they're incredibly smart, that they adore their kids, and that they're doing this very selfless job for very little money. And we just have to be there constantly to lift them up before they fall, because they are the most precious gifts that we have in our schools, besides our kids, of course, which are definitely a gift. But I will tell you, it is, like I said, I don't even know, somewhere between 13 and 15 years that I've been working with teachers now, and I am so grateful that, and I'm privileged, feel so privileged that I get to have this job, and I'm so thankful for Mary and her mentorship. She has not written a single book, but she taught me the world. So it's the end of day one. I will be back tomorrow for day two for some more tips on how to launch your workshop. But first and foremost, find some books, find some mentors, have colleagues, ask them, what should you do to, who should you buy, who has inspired you, and know that you're not alone. You're not alone. It can be such a lonely job teaching, and to teach something like the teaching of writing that can be scary and intimidating on ourselves, and that can tug at our heartstrings and our kids. It is the most beautiful and the most difficult and most important thing we could possibly teach and give to our kids, but you can't do it alone. You can't do it alone. So we'll see you tomorrow for day 2, tips 2. But day 1 was get a mentor. Thanks. Bye.